Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. This is Christmas Day, which means one big thing in terms for movies. Wonder Woman 1984 is out. This is a movie that we have been waiting for over a year now. I think this, if I remember, this movie was supposed to come out last year, I believe. And then it got pushed to summer, and then COVID happened, and it kept getting pushed, and finally there was like, you know what? Christmas Day, it's coming out. Deal with it. So it was one of those movies where we had been waiting a while for the sequel to Wonder Woman, and now it's finally out. It's finally here. It's in theaters and on HBO Max, which is going to kind of be the new norm now for Warner Brothers movies throughout 2021. Which for me is fantastic because my closest theater is like 45 minutes away now that actually is still open. So being able to watch this at home on my 4K TV definitely is more beneficial than me wasting a total of an hour to an hour and a half driving to see a movie that could potentially not be good or be fantastic. Now, Wonder Woman 84 has been one of the most highly anticipated films of 2020, even before the pandemic happened, because Wonder Woman was critically acclaimed to be one of the best superhero movies of all time. Not personally, but for most people out there. I thought Wonder Woman was a solid superhero film. There's one particular part of the film to me that just irked me way too much for me to fully enjoy the film, which I can talk about that some other time. But that was the big thing that kept me from loving Wonder Woman over everyone else. But Gal Gadot does a fantastic job as Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. I think she does she is Wonder Woman, and I feel like a lot of the weight falls on her on whether or not this movie's going to work or not. And I think with her, I think she is going to be fantastic in this, regardless of the movie being good or not, because I feel like she established herself incredibly well in the first Wonder Woman, that if the movie doesn't work, it's not going to be her fault. It's going to be the screenplay and the people around her, and not necessarily her performance. And there's a lot of huge question marks going into this film. One is Chris Pine's Steve Trevor is back. How the hell is he back? He passed away in the first film, so that had to be explained. Kristen Wiig is playing Barbara Minerva, who is the Cheetah. Kristen Wiig, I'm hot and cold on her. I either really like her or I can't stand her performances. I think she was overused in SNL to the point where it made me dislike her. But I have seen her in other things that had her stand out and made me like what she does. So her being a villain in this was definitely something that is either going to really work or fail miserably. And then the other big name is coming right off of Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, who I've always been a fan of, whether it be The Mandalorian, Game of Thrones. Heck, I liked him in Kingsman too. And so him being the other villain in this film as Maxwell Lord, there was a lot of stuff to go on this film. And then, of course, they throw the 1980s into this, which I will say is being overdone to the max. I mean, we had Stranger Things, which I think worked perfectly for 1980s stuff, but now everyone's just like, let's do 1980s. And whether or not that's going to work in this film, from what I've seen in the trailers, it doesn't work really well, but we'll see exactly what I think when it comes to their overall review. But there was a lot riding on Wonder Woman 1984 in terms of having to work because of the pandemic, because this is, to me, outside of Tenet, is the biggest film to be released in 2020. And Tenet was solid, but did not hit the levels of a Christopher Nolan great. And Wonder Woman really needed to kind of come out and become this great film to not make 2020 just feel like a complete wash. So let's go ahead and jump into the review and see exactly what I thought of Wonder Woman 1984. Basically, the general plot of Wonder Woman 1984 is that we are in 1984. Wonder Woman is still basically doing what she was doing at the end of the last film. She's kind of become almost like an Indiana Jones type, where she's finding like old agricultural like stuff, anthropology, not agriculture. They're finding all these old things and cleaning them up and making them work. And then, of course, she's Wonder Woman as well. We do get a nice opening scene in Themyscira, which I really, really enjoy. It's kind of like almost like an American Ninja Warrior competition. I wish we could have spent more time there, but obviously she hasn't returned back there since the events of the first film. But it was nice to go back there for at least the first 10 minutes of the film. Once we get into the 1980s, we're basically like, to her, she's accommodated to the new world. We kind of come into her already kind of doing her thing, doing her superhero thing and then her non-superhero thing. And we get introduced to two new characters. Barbara, played by Kristen Wiig, she works in the Smithsonian, kind of in the same department as Diana. And then also Max Lord, who is this oil tycoon who could potentially be a con man, but he's trying to kind of become this big thing. And over the course of finding all of these there's a big like heist thing happening. We find this special stone, and the stone grants the power of wishes. And thus, that's basically where the film goes. I don't want to go too far into what happens and what creates the stirs of the film, but it all revolves around this wishing stone, which in the effects of the film, because they say it like 5 times, they are basically using the plot of a Simpsons Halloween special, The Monkey's Paw, which every time they said it in the movie, I just thought of Homer wishing for the best sandwich, and it didn't work out for him. But yes, the main plot of Wonder Woman 1984 is basically a Halloween episode of The Simpsons, The Monkey's Paw, and how everything kind of, the world kind of just gets reacted to this wishing stone. And that's basically the main plot of Wonder Woman 1984. What works with Wonder Woman, obviously Gal Gadot as Diana or Wonder Woman. She's fantastic. She has become Wonder Woman herself. She is, I mean, her beauty knows no bounds in this film. I mean, literally every time she walks by, everyone stops and stares. Which that's one other little beat I'm going to hit on a little bit later with another character. But she has made this character her own. Whether it's her fighting style, whether it's her just being Diana and just interacting with the people around her, she's pleasant on screen. She's never over the top. She's never overdoing anything. She is well sunk into this character of Diana Prince, and Gal Gadot definitely does a fantastic job in this. Chris Pine, who comes back as Steve Trevor, I'm not going to explain how he comes back. You're just going to have to watch the movie. His explanation for him coming back, though, leaves a lot of kind of questions that I'm like, wait, how does that work? What happens with this? I kind of have a problem with this. We need explanations. Do we get it? No, we don't. You'll understand when you see it. But Chris Pine does a solid job as Steve Trevor. His character kind of actually knows what's going on. He gets what's going on. The comedic tones for him kind of opening up in this new world, because the last time he was alive was in the 1940s, and him having to kind of accommodate to the 1980s. Does that joke run its course? It does, but it's good while it lasts. And Chris Pine and Gal Gadot's chemistry together works incredibly well. And right before the end of the second act, they have a great scene together. That was probably my favorite scene in the film overall. Those two are definitely the standouts in this film. They do a fantastic job with what they got, and they work incredibly well together. Kristen Wiig. Here's the thing with Kristen Wiig's character. You can tell that they were really, really, really trying to make her like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Batman Returns. As like she wears glasses and her hair's all frazzled. She's not pretty, but it's Kristen Wiig. She's an attractive woman. And she's a loser. She's a dork. She has no backbone. People walk all over her. But then something happens, and all of a sudden, because she changes her clothes and she does her hair different, she's a goddess. And it's like, come on. And honestly, that's one thing that kind of irked me in this film. According to the way they did Wonder Woman, if you're a pretty girl, every man is a gawker, a rapist, or is just kind of a slug to these two women. Every 5 seconds, a man is trying to catcall them or try to grab them and do something to them. It's like, come on. Like, it is a little kind of just ridiculous after a while. Like literally every time Kristen Wiig or Diana's walking alone down a street, there has to be a guy going, "Hey baby, why don't you come over here real quick?" Or all this, or the occasional guy who tried to come up to him and grab him. And it's like, come on, like this is ridiculous. Like it's just at this point you're making every guy in the world outside of Chris Pine basically become a potential rapist or just kind of a douchebag, and that really irks me in this movie. That's almost kind of how they did it with every male character that was kind of like a stationary character around the hemisphere of Kirsten Wiig and Gal Gadot's beauty, which was just utterly ridiculous. But Kirsten Wiig, she didn't do a bad job. She's you can tell she's trying to be Michelle Pfeiffer-esque, but just we've seen it before, and Michelle Pfeiffer is just way better at it than Kirsten Wiig. And when we get to the inevitable end of the film, the third act, the big third act thing with her, it just didn't feel earned. They tried to force this friendship between Barbara and Diana, and they literally just meet at the beginning of the film, and just because they had a lunch together doesn't make them best friends. It's not earned in terms of when they inevitably fight at the end. This emotional weight, it's not there. It's not earned overall. Now, stuff with Steve Trevor and Diana, that's been earned. That's been established. But they're trying to make Kristen Wiig and Gal Gadot's relationship be bigger than what it really is in the film. And it's just not – there's not enough time between them together as friends for that to feel anything other than just like a copycat or a wannabe of trying to be like Diana. Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord – I think he does a really solid job as kind of being this sleazy con man who's really just who's always been told you're nothing, you're worthless and stuff like this. But when you finally get that power, how it can consume you and you just want nothing more than more and more power. And I think Pedro does a great job of that overall. I don't necessarily agree with how the end events of his character went to be, because it's very almost like It's a Wonderful Life-esque kind of a treatment. I don't think it's earned as well for his character because we aren't getting these moments throughout the film that should basically humanize his character enough for us to feel his character by the end. Once again, we're seeing it happen on screen, but it's not earned, and that's going to be a kind of a pattern you're going to see with this film. Those are really the main four characters of the film. Like, you're going to have other characters in there, but they're not given enough time to really hold much weight to it. It's really based off of these four. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine do a fantastic job. Pedro does a great job. It's just the writing for his character isn't fully fleshed out. Kristen Wiig is solid, but once again, the writing is not there. I feel like Wonder Woman 1984 would have been better done if it was a season, because there's so many little story outlets that they're trying to throw in that I feel like would have worked better if they had more time. It takes an hour and 20 minutes before the movie really starts to kick into its action aspects of the film and really starts to get into the root of what's happening in this story. And the first 80 minutes is literally just placements. And even then, the placements aren't there strong enough to hold the weight of the rest of the film at the end. You're putting out all these feelers for a story, and they're not strong enough to support when we finally just go full on action in the last hour of the film. The real relationships between these characters are not earned. Now, if it was on a TV show and they had a full season to do this, would Kirsten Wiig and Gal Gadot's Diana and Barbara's friendship be earned? Would it have been established better to the point when stuff happens, there's more weight to it? Absolutely. Would Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord's rise to this greed of power, would it have been established better to the point that when we get to a certain point in the film, it feels more earned? Yes. The only thing that felt earned was Steve Trevor and Diana's relationship, but we had a whole other movie to do that for us. And it was just one of those things where there's a lot of good stuff in it. There's a lot of cool moments and scenes and action sequences, but naturally the actual end, when we get to the final end point, it just kind of falls flat for me. And it's because the story elements just aren't strong enough in the film, but they couldn't make a 4-hour movie or even a 3-hour movie. But if they had more time and they would have just like kind of cut some of the stuff out, like the 1980s aspect, outside of jokes, there's really no reason for this movie to be in the 1980s. Yes, probably they wanted to do it in 1980s because if you did it in present day, you'd have like the internet and you would have like cell phone technology and all that stuff. So it would kind of dense, I guess, the weight of what the film is. So I guess do it in the 1980s because it's, I guess, simpler to pull off what you're trying to do. But it's one of those things where it's like the cheesiness of the 1980s, the mall scene, which you've seen in the trailers, is so over the top cheesy that it's like, oh, God, you're turning me off to the 1980s. And I actually like the 1980s. And it was just so over the top cheese that, like, when they actually stopped focusing on the 1980s aspect of the film, Wonder Woman's actually really solid. There is no man's land moment. Everyone knows that with Wonder Woman, the first film, the premiere scene is Diana rising up from no man's land and finally becoming Wonder Woman. There is no scene like that in this film that will have that memory. Like you would, like people still talk about that scene to this day. I don't think there's a scene in Wonder Woman 1984 that will have that resonance for years down the road. Now, there are, for the Wonder Woman fans, there are two things in this film that I think people have been waiting for Wonder Woman to have or to do that they do get in this film, and those moments are done really, really well. I will say also her lasso, there needs to be better explanation about her lasso abilities, because that lasso either is like 6 feet or 1,000+ feet long. It's ridiculous, the lasso. They really need to kind of figure out what they want to do with that thing. Because literally the lasso is kind of like a plot device. It can do whatever it needs to do for the plot to allow for her to do certain things, which kind of irked me as I was watching it. But like I said, none of this is Gal Gadot's fault. None of this is Chris Pine's fault. This is literally and I like Patty Jenkins, but I hope she does fantastic with Rogue Squadron. But it's one of those things where she tries to throw too much in, and it's not fleshed out enough for her to stay strong enough through the rest of the film, to the point where she should have just taken some stuff out to make a stronger, leaner story. And that's basically what it kind of comes down to. Wonder Woman 1984. It's a solid superhero movie. It's not as good as the first one. Is it a memorable Wonder Woman movie? I mean, there's only 2 out there, really. You're gonna remember it because it's probably the biggest movie that came out this year. But is it one? If in terms of 2020 currently right now, is it one of the bigger movies of the year? 100%. Now, if 2020 had not had COVID and the world had not kind of shut down and all the movies that were supposed to come out in 2020 actually came out, would Wonder Woman 1984 be one of the biggest films of the year? No, it would not. I feel like it would kind of fall as a disappointment. I don't feel like it would be up to the links of some of the films that got pushed back to next year. It just kind of felt at certain points. And to the point, and that's the point too, is like, because it took so long to really get into the meat of the story, I actually paused it. I hate pausing movies. I like watching a movie from beginning to end, but it got to like the hour mark, and I'm just like, I need a break because I'm just not loving this yet. It's not grabbing me enough to make me want to continue watching. And I had to walk away for a couple hours and just do other things, and finally it made me come back and go, okay, it's time for me to finish this thing. It didn't glue me to the TV. I watched Wonder Woman, the first one, last night, and I was glued to the TV watching it from beginning to end. But Wonder Woman 84, I just wasn't glued enough, or it didn't grab me enough to make me want to keep watching it from beginning to end. Now, obviously, like, that's going to be the big problem with a lot of people now when it goes from watching it in the theater to watching it at home, is that there's other things around the house that's going to distract you and keep you from staying put like you would in a movie theater seat. But that's the way the world is now, and that's kind of on the job of the directors and the filmmakers to keep the people who are watching the movie interacted the whole way through. And I'm sure people are like, well, it's hard with your reviews too because I talk so long, but it is what it is. So I mean, going to overall thoughts, do I recommend Wonder Woman 1984? Yes, it's still, of the year of 2020, it is definitely a standout film for its effects, for its action, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Is it one of the best films of the year? Not a chance. Is it enjoyable? For the most part. But is it a superhero movie that I will go back and rewatch fondly over and over and over again, like I would with any of the Batman films, except for BVS, or any of the MCU films? It's not. It really isn't. And that sucks because, like I said, Gal Gadot does a great job as Wonder Woman, and I really want her to. I don't want this to fall on her because it's definitely not her fault in the film. It's more, like I said, the script and just too much and not enough substance. But going to my overall score, I'm going to give Wonder Woman a 7.4 out of 10. Like I said, it's decent, it's solid, but it's just not good enough by today's standards for a superhero film overall. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of movies that are out there that are like indies that I probably should check out and watch. And if I watch them and I feel like they're worth talking to you guys about, then I will definitely do a video showing them. I think Sound of Metal is one that I probably will end up talking to you guys about. But we'll see what happens. Coming into the new year, there are going to be some changes to the channel. We're going to change the name of the channel. I wish I had graphics people who could do the graphics for me because I suck at it. But we also have a brand new show coming to the start of the new year. It'll start in the second week of January. And it's going to be with myself and my colleague, fellow Crusader Brian Michaels. And it's going to be called The Weekend Crusaders, where we will be talking about films of the weekend. And I hope you guys check into that because that's going to be a real fun show. We are excited to be doing that for you, so be on the lookout for that at the, I would say about the second weekend of the new year. But yeah, just be on the lookout. We got some stuff coming, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And until next time, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, and have a happy rest of the holidays and a happy rest of the year.